Hi, this is Mike from BandLab. Did you know you can use BandLab to make your own samples? In this video, we'll show you how to make your own stab sample using BandLab's virtual instruments, effects, and sampler instrument. You can open these projects yourself with the links in the video description. And if you find this guide useful, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to know when new videos drop. We're going to use BandLab's selection of virtual instruments to make an orchestral stab that we can process to give it a vintage feel. Then load it into a sampler instrument and use it in a project. I start by creating a new virtual instrument track and setting it to strings, string orchestra stack. This orchestra string patch can be played over a wide range of octaves to create a full sound. I'm going to make my stab in the key of F, so I sequence short notes on F1 to F6. This gives us a simple string stab that can make a cool stab sample on its own, but I'd like to add some more flavor. I turn the track down to -6 dB, giving me more headroom in the mix to add other elements. I add another virtual instrument track, and this time set it to winds, full brass. This has a smaller octave range than the string patch, and I sequence it to play on F2 to F5. I set this track to -6 dB to balance it with the string track. Let's hear how they sound together. Now let's add some woodwind. I add another virtual instrument track and set it to winds, flute. We already have a lot of low and mid-range energy in the sound, so I'm going to use the flute to add some highs. I sequence the flute patch to play on F6 and F7. This sound is quite loud and piercing, so I turn it down to -10.8 dB to balance it with the other elements. We now have a quite full-sounding orchestra stab. Let's bounce it to audio so that we can process it further. I select Project, Download, Mix Down As, and create a wave version of the sample. When the sample has been saved, I load it onto the audio track in the same project as the original sounds, which I have muted so we can only hear the sampled version. I'd like to make the sampled version sound more lo-fi like an 80s orchestral stab. In the effects panel, I add a distortion bit crusher effect, setting the intensity to 9%, bits to 7, and mix to 100%. This makes the tail end of the sound get super crunchy as the volume of the instruments dissipates, but this is something we can deal with later. I'd also like the sound to be loud and punchy, so I add a Dynamics BL1176 compressor. Again, I create a new wave version of the sound. Now I start a new project that's going to use the stab sample I've just created. In BandLab Sounds, I search for dancehall using the text search field. I open the Modern Dancehall pack and set the instrument filter to beats. I drag Pull Up Rhythm Full Drums 92 into the project. I set this track to -6 dB to give me more headroom to add elements to the project. Next, I create a sampler track. I drag my stab sample onto the first sampler pad. I want the sound to be staccato, so I move the sample end marker to just above the volume knob. This makes the sample short and snappy, and means we don't hear the unwanted crunchiness at the end of the sound. I'd like to be able to play the stab on 2 different notes, so I duplicate the pad out. To duplicate a pad, hold Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and drag it over. I use the pitch control on this new pad to tune up the stab to +7 semitones. I sequence this sound to play on the 4th and 7th 16th notes. I duplicate this out, again by holding Option or Alt, and drag the 4th version up to the next key so that it plays a pitched up version of the second pad. This sound is quite loud, so I turn it down to -7 dB. Next, I'm going to use some effects to enhance the sound. In the effects panel, I add a tone graphic EQ effect. I set the 100 Hz band to +1.3 dB, the 200 Hz band to 1.8 dB, the 1.6 kHz band to +1.7 dB, and the 3.2 kHz band to +1.6 dB. I feel like this makes the sound more exciting, and it sounds more consistent with the dancehall beat. Next, I add a reverb, studio reverb, setting its mix to 17%. This prevents the sound from cutting off quite so abruptly, and makes it feel larger and more natural. For the final touch, I add a new virtual instrument track and set it to 808's 808 bass. Turn the track down to -6 dB and sequence a part that hits F1 and C2. Remember, you can fork both of these projects using the link in the video description. Have fun!